I'm Derek Chalet, the Executive Vice President of the German Marshall Fund of the United States, based in Washington. And on behalf of PISM and GMF, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome Jens Stoltenberg, the 13th Secretary General of NATO, here with us. Secretary Stoltenberg is in Warsaw for just about 24 hours, so we are grateful that he has taken time out of his very, very busy schedule here to have some time with us and to make an important statement on NATO at 70, NATO enlargement at 20. Secretary General Stoltenberg is known to everyone in this audience. He has a distinguished career in public service, twice the Prime Minister of Norway, and since 2014, a very effective and tireless Secretary General of the NATO alliance. He has been a leader on defense modernization and reform, on the very difficult issue of burden sharing, and in urging all of us to think about NATO at 360. So without further ado, Secretary Stoltenberg, I'd like to give the floor to you. Thank you again for your time, and we're very much looking forward to your comments.
Minister Čapočović, dear friends, it's really a great pleasure to be here and to be able to address you on this occasion where we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Poland joining NATO, and especially to be here together with you and seeing some people who are actually very active and instrumental in making that happen back in 1999. I see Madeleine Albright at the front row, so there are people in this room who actually made that happen. It is hard to understand the impact of the enlargement of NATO, the importance, how it has transformed Europe. Because I remember as a very young, active young politician in Norway, we actually traveled to what we then called East Europe during the Cold War, and that was a totally different world. I was from Norway. We went into East Germany and Poland, and it was like, you know, going to a total different world. And if anyone had told me back then that not so much later, Poland and many other of the former Warsaw Pact members were going to be members of NATO, I would have regarded that as absolutely impossible. Then today, this is the fact, and it shows that change is possible. And the enlargement of the European Union and the enlargement of NATO has really transformed Europe. And therefore, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Poland joining NATO is really something worthwhile or worth celebrating. And therefore, it is also great to be together with you and to say that what we have seen over the last 2 decades with Poland as a member is that Poland is a very committed ally, an ally which is contributing to our shared security, to our collective defense in many different ways. And it helps to strengthen NATO, and it helps to build the transatlantic partnership, and that's something which we really welcome. Poland is contributing to NATO in many different ways. Poland is present in one of our battle groups in Latvia, the Enhanced Forward Presence. Poland is conducting air policing out from Lithuania. Poland is part of our enhanced or our tailored forward presence in Romania, the NATO presence there. And Poland is also contributing to different NATO missions and operations, including in Afghanistan, our training mission in Iraq, and also in Kosovo. And then Poland is also leading by example by investing 2% of GDP on defense. By doing all this, Poland is helping to strengthen our alliance. At the same time, we see that NATO is also committed to Poland by the fact that now Poland is covered by NATO's security guarantees, and NATO has increased its presence in Poland with one of the battle groups. We have 4 battle groups, 3 in the Baltic countries and 1 in Poland. That's the first time we have combat-ready troops in this part of the alliance. Then the United States has a rotational armored brigade. And then we have the site for missile defense in Poland. We have more exercises, we have investments in infrastructure, and we have also other kinds of NATO presence in Poland. So I think what we see is that Poland joining NATO has been good for Poland, and of course also good for the NATO alliance. It was a sovereign decision to join the alliance. And it is an important message from NATO that our door is open. And this year we signed the accession protocol for North Macedonia. In 2017, Montenegro joined. And as you know, after Poland joined, together with Hungary and the Czech Republic in 1999, many other countries have joined. So we have actually almost doubled in size, more than doubled since our founding in 1949, 12 members, to now 29. Most likely, or we will be 30 within not so many months when the accession protocol with North Macedonia is ratified in all the allied countries. So this enlargement has been decisions by sovereign nations, and NATO respects those decisions, and we send a very clear signal to all those who are protesting and saying that the enlargement of NATO is a provocation. It's not a provocation. It is the sovereign decision of a sovereign nation, and we respect those sovereign decisions because every nation has the right to make its own decisions on its own path. And that's exactly what Poland did when they decided to join NATO, and the NATO allies welcomed them back in 1999. But as you know, this year we are not only celebrating the 20th anniversary of Poland joining NATO, but also the 50th anniversary of a lot of other allies joining NATO in 2004, and then the 10th anniversary of Croatia and Albania joining in 2009. And then we celebrate the 70th anniversary of NATO, the founding of NATO. The paradox is that despite that we are growing bigger, more countries are joining the alliance, despite that we have been the most successful alliance in history, we see questions being asked about the strength and the relevance of the transatlantic bond, both in Europe and in North America. And this is a paradox, because I have to admit that, of course, we see differences. We see disagreements between NATO allies on important issues, such as trade, climate change, the Iran nuclear deal, burden sharing, and other issues. And we have to admit that these are differences on important issues. But the paradox is that despite these differences, North America and Europe are doing more together within NATO and on security and defense than we have done for many years. We see that we have, for the first time, deployed battle groups, increased our military presence in the eastern part of the alliance. We have significantly, together, North America and the United States, increased the readiness of our forces, tripled the size of the NATO response force, and now we are adding even more with what we call the 430 initiative, also 30 battalions, 30 warships, and 30 air squadrons ready within 30 days, adding to the high readiness forces of NATO. We are transforming, adapting the command structure with a new command in Norfolk, Virginia for the Atlantic, and a new command in Ulm in Germany for European mobility and logistics and the movement of equipment and forces throughout Europe. We are stepping up the fight against terror. We have made enormous progress in the fight against Daesh. The global coalition, NATO is part of that, all NATO allies are part of that. It's a transatlantic effort. And we have seen some progress in Afghanistan, meaning that we have transformed our operation there from a combat operation to a train, assist, and advise operation, based on the idea that in the long run it's better that we are able to train local forces, help them to stabilize their own country, instead of NATO being engaged in big or large combat operations. And hopefully we can see some outcome of the peace talks, which is now taking place between the United States and Taliban, closely consulted with NATO. So we do more together in that sense. But we also see that, contrary to what many people believe, or kind of the public perception, the United States is not reducing their presence in Europe. The United States is committed to the security of Europe. It's right that after the end of the Cold War, the United States reduced its military presence in Europe. And that was quite natural, because tensions went down. But over the last years, we have seen that the United States is again increasing its military presence in Europe. The last US battle tank left Europe in December 2013. Now the United States is back with a full armored brigade, many battle tanks in Europe. Actually rotational based here in Poland. That's not a sign of weakened commitment, that's a sign of strengthened commitment. The funding for the European Deterrence Initiative has been increased by 40%, the US funding for US military activities in Europe. More exercises. We had the Trident Juncture exercise with a lot of participation from North America, Canada, and the United States. The biggest exercise NATO has conducted since the end of the Cold War, last fall in Norway. We have 4 battle groups, as I said. 2 of them are led by North American allies. One, United States in Poland, and the other led by Canada in Latvia. That's not less North American commitment to Europe, that's more North American commitment to Europe. I'm watching the watch because I'm told that I have to leave when I have to leave. So suddenly I just run out. Not to be impolite, but just to catch the other thing. Then the European allies are stepping up. Because after years of cutting defense spending, they are now increasing. All European allies have stopped the cuts. All European allies and Canada have started to increase. And since 2016, they will have added 100 billion extra for defense spending by the end of next year. This is also recognized in Washington. So, yes, there are differences. Yes, there are disagreements on many issues. But yes, when it comes to NATO security, we're actually strengthening our partnership. And for me, it is important to convey this because perception matters. If the perception is that we are not strong, if the perception is that we are not standing together, then we reduce deterrence. And the strength of NATO, the deterrence we are delivering every day, the purpose of that is to prevent conflict, is to preserve the peace. And if there is any misunderstanding about that, we are actually increasing the risk of conflict, miscalculations, and attack against a NATO ally. So therefore, I'm focused on the reality, but also how we are presenting the reality, because deterrence is in the mind of your potential adversary. Then I would like to say that we see the need for transatlantic cooperation in many areas. The fight against terrorism, that has been a transatlantic effort. Addressing some of the big new challenges, cyber, new technology, transatlantic. We see China as a rising power. There's a great potential for cooperation, for partnership, but there are also some challenges we have to address together. But then we see a very urgent challenge, which really is a transatlantic challenge. And that is the intermediate range forces. It's the US that signed the INF Treaty back in 1987. So it's a US-Russia agreement, but it has direct impact on European security. So there's no way we can deal with it without being a transatlantic alliance. And you know how important that INF Treaty has been. It shaped understanding of security issues for a whole generation of politicians, the deployment of the Russian SS-20 missiles in the 70s, and then the NATO response with the Pershing and cruise missiles. And I think it was hard to imagine how much we welcomed and appreciate the INF agreement signed in 1987, not only reducing or limiting the number of missiles, but banning all of them. All intermediate range missiles were banned by the INF Treaty. Now Russia is violating that treaty. It was the Obama administration for almost 6 years ago that first raised that concern with Russia. All allies have expressed their concerns, and all allies have agreed, and many of them independently based on their own information, that Russia is in violation. The new SSC-8 missile is nuclear capable, hard to detect, can reach European cities, and reduce the warning time, and by that also it is reducing the threshold for any potential use of nuclear weapons in an armed conflict. So this is really serious. Russia still has the opportunity to come back into compliance. We call on them to do so. But at the same time, we have started to plan for a world without the INF Treaty, with more Russian missiles in Europe. It's far too early to say what the outcome will be of that process in NATO. But what I can say is that we will be measured. We will be coordinated. It will be a NATO response. And we don't have any intention of deploying new nuclear ground launch missile systems in Europe. My message about this is that the INF issue is a serious challenge, but my message is also that it highlights and once again reminds us of the importance of the transatlantic bond, because the only way we can deal with this is as a transatlantic alliance, North America and Europe standing together. So 70 years of NATO, a great success. 20 years of Polish membership, a great success. And there are many more successful years to come. Thank you so much for the attention.
Secretary General, thank you very much for being with us today at our birthday party. Thank you very much for your contribution to our alliance and also to this conference. Applause, please.